Hi, I'm Shreya. I'm the founder and CEO of SolarSquare.
Okay. So, Shreya, let's start by understanding the trigger for becoming an entrepreneur. Just talk to us a bit about that.
Sure. So I think, 2010, 11, 12 was the, first wave of entrepreneurs and tech entrepreneurs were, coming sort of front and center in India. And I am an engineer from IIT Bombay. So obviously a lot of them were from IIT Bombay or other IITs. So it was all the chatter in our ecosystem. And my first sort of tryst with entrepreneurship was when, so we had a small sort of education venture when I was still studying in college at IIT Bombay. And we ended up participating in the B Plan contest of IIT Bombay. It's called Eureka. Ended up winning it. The award was 5 lakh
Wow.
rupees to, build the
Oh,
business, and
wow.
also a 7-day boot camp at Stanford University, which was an international boot camp where student entrepreneurs from across the world had come in, spend a week at Stanford, attend expert sessions, but also actually visit startup offices. So this is back in 2012. This is the first time I actually got a vibe of Silicon Valley. And, reading about Silicon Valley in news or in books is very different from actually visiting those offices. So I remember visiting the Airbnb office, Google office, Zynga, a couple of social impact startups as well. And so it was very fascinating. And that is where I decided, this is yahi karna hai, like entrepreneurship is the thing to do. And it's challenging, it's scary, but very rewarding. The journey can be very rewarding. So that's how I, decided to be an entrepreneur. Of course, I had already been placed, from campus. So I was placed at the Boston Consulting Group, which was also a very attractive opportunity to just pass by. And I thought, I should definitely take a few years of work experience before I jump back into, building something. So I graduated from IIT Bombay, joined BCG, wanted to,
That education
yeah.
venture, it never took off.
Yeah, I mean, so we ran it. We ran it for about a year, and
Okay.
it was a nice project of sorts, but I don't think it had like real legs to be a big business. So realized
Okay.
that, and decided, ki, "Okay, let me
Was
go
it
back."
IT, JEE entrance kind of a business?
Oh, no, it wasn't that. It was actually a business for students from tier two cities. It was a monthly magazine. Before EdTech, this was actually a physical magazine that we used to run, and the magazine would have, all the writers of articles were students from like prestigious colleges like AIMS, IIT, law schools, etc.
Okay.
And we would talk about a variety of things that somebody in their ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th standard wants to know, the exposure they can get. So we would write about things like, what are the Trinity School exams? Or what does a career in law look like? What does a career in sports look like? Etc. Etc. So, just giving them
Hmm.
more exposure and
Okay.
information of what's out there. So that was that.
Got it.
And yeah.
Hmm.
So would go
Hmm.
school to school,
Okay. Yeah, obviously,
pitching in school
could not be
assemblies.
scaled.
Correct. And I would go like
Hmm.
school to school, pitching in school assemblies to get students to subscribe. And I think we had some 400 subscribers
Hmm.
of the magazine. And we would edit it.
Okay.
Students from IIT Bombay would be like editors, designers. We would get it printed somewhere in, and so,
Hmm.
it was interesting, for the first time you sell something to somebody, whether it's on a lemonade stand or, in a college venture. I think that feeling, that gratification is very, very real. Ki, हाँ, कुछ कर सकते हैं. I think so.
Yeah.
That is what that venture was for me. I for the first time I sold something to people. So that was very,
Hmm.
very interesting. What it takes to acquire customers, get their feedback, understand what they like, don't like. So that was very interesting.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. So BCG, then what?
So yeah, after at campus, I was placed in the Boston Consulting Group. So worked at BCG for 2 years. Then again thought, ki, acha, now is the time. Let me start up. So I was wanting to do something in the food space at that time. Ended up meeting somebody at Everstone Capital. They had a large restaurant portfolio. Somehow got convinced ki idhar aake kaam kar lo, thoda aur seekh lo. Then maybe you go and start up. So ended up joining them and worked there for a very little time. But this was, interesting to see the world from an investor's lens. how do they evaluate a business across different stages, early stage, growth stage, mature, large, profitable companies. So lot of interesting learnings, just sitting in those boardrooms, understanding how a health of a business is evaluated, or the potential of a business is evaluated. But that was a very short stint. I was itching too much to start up. So then I started I partnered with two other IIT Bombay folks, and started my first venture. For the first, 5-6 months, we were just researching kya karna hai. Sharing economy was all the buzz at that time, and it sounded like so good. Sharing economy is like good for planet, good for consumers, good for economy, better utilization of anything, whether it's cars or homes or whatever. So that's when we got onto the idea of building a shared wardrobe for women. And there was a company called Rent the Runway in the US, which had done decent by that time. And so we said, okay, let's build the Rent the Runway for India, and let's build the fashion rental service of India. So that's how Flyrobe came into being. And after like a lot of consumer surveys and researches and many iterations, we launched Flyrobe in 2015.
Okay, for our listeners, sharing economy is not a buzzword today, but uh, Uber, Airbnb, all of these were essentially considered part of sharing economy, like around 2015, 14, 15 timeframe, and there was this whole wave of Uber for X startups also. Yeah. Hmm. So
Correct, absolutely.
you launched it as a pure online play.
Yes, so we launched it as a pure online play. Launched it as a service for like to be like a rotating wardrobe for women. That you have this website with a bunch of really good high quality fashion that you could just book, wear, return. Book, wear, return. And so that's how you get like a refresh in your closet, because women can never have enough clothes. And also, it's the shelf life of clothes and fast fashion is so low, so it's also sustainable, to just sort of wear and loop back or return and get something new. So that's how it started. And yeah, it was an online only service at first.
And okay. Did you find product market fit
Yeah,
at
that's a good,
Flyrobe?
right. So I think that's a very deep question. So I would say there are, I think product market fit is not a one day affair. I think there are multiple stages of product market fit. So I think if I start by, first we thought, okay, women would rent for like, office wear, evening wear, parties, their social events. And about a year, we were renting Western wear largely. And, we wanted to be like this, rotating closet, like I said. But very quickly, we realized that renting is a new concept. And for consumers to accept it for something, like more regular routine wear was very difficult, right? Where we started finding product market fit was special occasion wear. If I had to attend a wedding or a family function or somebody's baby shower, etc., that's when the concept of renting was a lot more amenable. So that first stage of product market fit was after a year. We had raised our seed round from Sequoia. After a year and a half, we realized कि ये Western wear तो नहीं चलेगा. So we shut that and we moved to occasion wear. Then when we went into occasion wear, the next layer of product market fit was understanding that occasion wear is very high stakes. If I'm renting something to attend at my friend's wedding, it's a very high stakes event. Renting it online, there's a lot of jitteriness. Kuch gadbad ho gaya, to if it doesn't fit, on the last day, if it doesn't look good on you, or if it doesn't fit, you have no alternate. So we realized that an omni-channel strategy will work better, where people can try, touch, and feel. And for high stakes occasions, they're also willing to go for really higher, like our rental would range from $2,000 to $50,000. So there were people who were actually paying 50,000, 30,000 bucks to rent something for a day because it was a 3 lakh rupee designer wear from somebody. So we realized that the offline channel worked well. The third phase of our product market fit was realizing that women are very emotionally attached about their fashion. Men, like, the concept of renting really clicks with men because they have no emotional attachment to their clothes. They actually are also quite lazy about dressing up for special occasions. So if you give them something quick and easy on the pocket, easy to just wear and return, they would actually accept it a lot more. So our third stage of product market fit was understanding that, okay, after omnichannel, you also get into menswear. So we had gone through all of those iterations. It was a 3-year journey going through all of that. We raised $11 million in that journey. Sequoia, which is now Peak 15, and Chirate Ventures were our investors. Lot of learnings, but ultimately, I think the question of PMF is, whether consumers want your product, but there's also the question of how large is the market, right? So yes, there is a set of consumers who like what you're selling, what you're giving, but how large is that market? And whether, when you have raised $11 million, the TAM better be at least, 100, 200, $300 million a year, right? And that we were not seeing. So the capital raised in the company, the TAM that we were seeing, and that realization, as a founder, you are optimistic about a new idea, right? Like everything will seem like, oh, it's too new and we don't know the TAM. But as a founder, you have to believe and charge through. So I think that optimism was there for a very long time. And my biggest learning from my first startup was that founder optimism and delusion, there's a very thin line. And sometimes, you just have to do it. You just have to do it, right? It's, if it was that easy to say what will work and what will not work, then, every entrepreneur would be successful. So I think, that optimism is also right. But then there's a point at which you have to come and say, okay, I have to now objectively answer whether this makes sense, whether the market size makes sense, whether whether the business model makes sense. So that happened to us at the end of like 3.5 years. And yeah, so then we decided to exit. So we sold the business in 2019.
What was your peak revenue there, or peak? Yeah.
So I think at our peak revenue would be like 2-3 crores a month. I think that is where we had gotten to at the end of 3 years. Yeah.
And how many offline centers did you have by then? Were
we
you
had
multiple cities?
Yeah. So we were operating in the big metros, Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad. I think at our peak, we had 4 stores, one in Bangalore, one in Hyderabad, one in Bombay, one in Delhi. So 4 or 5 stores, I think, at our peak. Yeah.
Okay. And so you were acquired by Rented Bay, which was on Shark Tank, that founder.
Correct.
Okay.
So they had a group of investors who had invested in Rented Bay. And when they knew that Flyrobe, we wanted to exit, so then their investors said, okay, we'll fund the acquisition of Flyrobe and then you run Flyrobe. So now Flyrobe is the brand that she runs. And so recently she was on Shark Tank.
Okay. What is, that thing you said about optimism versus delusion? What does it take to decide that you want to exit your venture? What are the signals that a founder should look for? Just to, for a founder to get that wake up call that no, I have crossed that border between optimism and delusion. What signals should a founder look for?
Yeah. See, I think there are 2 parts to it. One is that you have the luxury to decide yourself because you had capital, but you decided ki abhi break lagate hain, this business doesn't make sense. Let me pivot and use that capital. Many founders, by the way, have done that they decided to pivot extremely objectively, even when they had the choice to keep experimenting, keep going, right? I think that is, of course, a good scenario where you are yourself taking that call, right? And I think a lot of objectivity there, Akshay, right? Because one PMF doesn't happen overnight. So you keep iterating. And then there comes a point where you're saying, okay, I've tried Hajar Tarika and now this is still not clicking with my consumer, right? So you have to listen to the consumer very intently. You have to be very objective about the market size, the conversion that you will get, the TAM that you are serving. So I think that is one. And that objectivity, I think, comes, doesn't come overnight. I think it's a journey. It's a journey of experimentation and listening to your consumer. And also sometimes I feel having strong, that's why I believe angel investors are so important to our ecosystem. I don't think an investor can guide you in that moment, right? In those critical moments where it's do or die, where it's survive, where it's taking decisions like, oh, I have to pivot, which is very tough many times, even for a founder to accept, because you're so married to the idea that you started and you so much start believing, drinking your own Kool-Aid, that having angel investors who can help you see the facts, who can give you some, sense of, what is the real picture looking like? What are the metrics really telling you? So I think that is one, look at the numbers objectively, Giving up too soon is also bad, but trying, I mean, resilience, meaningless resilience is also won't get you anywhere, right? So, be resilient, believe in it, but there comes a point where you have to objectively say, okay, this is not working. Third, I think having good angel investors as mentors can really help you see things because they've gone through that journey of doubt, right? Where there's no right or wrong, you're just still experimenting. Nobody can tell you the answer. And you have to, find that conviction deep in your own gut. So I think those are the three things that worked for me. And I think in our case, we took too long. Like how now I see some folks who are like second time founders or people, who've worked at startups for a very long time and then start up. They are very comfortable with the idea of pivoting. In 6 months, you don't think this is working. You've raised venture capital. You go back to your investors and tell them, okay, I raised money from you. You trust me. Okay, I want to pivot. Next 6 months, I want to try something else. That doesn't work. You pivot again, right? I mean, the legendary story of Paytm, right? Like even Paytm was not Paytm when it started. It was some vast business, and then it changed so many shapes before it became Paytm. So I think being comfortable with the idea of pivoting. Sometimes we feel, oh, I've sold this vision to everybody. Oh, this is, a lot of founders struggle with that, right? That I've sold this vision to my team, to my investors. If I just pivot and, shut this overnight, what happens to my customers? What happens to my investors, etc.? What happens to my employees? But I think ultimately you are in this to build something large. And it is that temporary pain of pivoting and accepting I was wrong and I want to pivot, but you have to go through that. So I think being comfortable with the idea of pivot will be the fourth thing. It's absolutely okay. That is why 90% startups fail, because the first idea wasn't supposed to work. So yeah.
Right, right. You had enough cash to keep going, or were you running out of cash
So in our
when
case, we
you got
raised
acquired?
Yeah. So in our case, we raised 3 rounds of funding. So we had enough cash to keep going at it till a point, and then we didn't have cash. So for us, the reason to sell was because we were out of money, right? So like I said, that is the first camp. You have the choice to pivot or exit. The second is when you don't have a choice, right? More often than not, you'll be in the
Right.
other camp where you don't have the choice, right? Like new
True.
investors are not willing to back you.
Yes,
You
true.
don't have, sometimes you won't even have an exit, right? Sometimes, uh, you know, um, you just like the toughest part is when a startup just ceases to exist, right? For me, I'm still very happy because Flyrobe exists, right? Like the brand is still there. It has now 12, 13 franchisee stores across India, and consumers still use it, right? But many times the tougher part is where there's nobody willing to invest. You can't continue bootstrapped, you can't turn a profit, and there's nobody willing to buy you. So in that case, you just cease to exist one day, right? So I think more
Yeah.
often than not,
Yeah.
it'll be the lack of a choice
Yeah, that
than
is true, true, true. So true. Hmm. And did you get any sort of meaningful exit,
not at all.
like in the when it was acquired?
Not
Yeah,
at
I'm
all.
sure. I'm sure.
Not at all. So it was pretty much a crash landing, towards the end. And we were barely able to,
Hmm.
pay some of the dues that we had. So it was a very, very tough 6 months,
Hmm.
right? Going through that exit. And COVID had hit when the transaction was happening. So even the acquiring
Oh.
folks, like even they had to arrange their funds, and even they took a little bit longer to arrange the funds. And it was a very, very tough time. So I think for us, like the acquisition was, I think nominal, few crores, and it was just to pay off some of the bills and debts that we had in the business. So it was just that.
Hmm. Okay. 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 So, how did you get into SolarSquare? What is the backstory of SolarSquare?
Right. So, I think that's a lot of serendipity led me here. When I started Flyrobe in 2015, my husband, Neeraj, he started SolarSquare. So both of us started on different tracks, different entrepreneurship tracks. He is he's my batchmate from IIT Bombay. After IIT Bombay, he joined Deutsche Bank. So he's an ex-investment banker. He understood finance. And, solar was this, new interesting energy transition, was happening, and it was becoming real, and a lot of corporates and commercial customers were going solar. So he understood like solar will have a lot of engineering and financing, because one, it is execution of a large solar project which requires design, engineering, etc. But it also requires financing to sell it, because the upfront cost of solar can be high. So a lot of financial solutions were coming to increase adoption of solar even amongst corporates. So he said, this is like a nice sort of mix between financing and engineering, both of which, is an engineer from IIT Bombay and, an investment banker from Deutsche Bank. So he found his zone there and he started SolarSquare again in 2015. And in the first 5 years, and he was very different from the choices I made. So I raised venture funding, had like a 100-member team, million visitors on my website and app every month, and very different, very different path I took. And he took a very non-glamorous path. He bootstrapped. He put all of his and his dad's savings into the business. He bootstrapped and tried to build a profitable business.
Wow.
So, he was one of the very few people from IIT who were building a first generation bootstrap business, in 2015 when it was a gold rush. Everybody was raising venture capital. So for 5 years, he bootstrapped and he bootstrapped it to about 100 crores a year in revenue. So by 2020, by the time I had
Oh,
sold Flyrobe, SolarSquare was 100 crores and it was bootstrapped and profitable. So, but, he always
how did
wanted,
he achieve that?
right. So I think
Like
one,
that journey of bootstrapping to 100 crore, like what
right,
market was he targeting?
right.
And talk to me a bit about that.
Sure, sure. So they were targeting the commercial industrial solar segment. So basically, large corporates, Fortune 500 companies, they wanted to go solar because solar was now the cheapest source of power. By 2013, 14, everybody understood that, solar is the cheapest source of power. So if you are running a factory or a building, electricity can be a large part of your monthly expense. So people understood your one-time investment, I invest in solar, in less than 5 years, you will break even, and it gives you 25 years of free electricity. So that is why consumers were, more and more going for solar. He opted to, do so like full end-to-end solution for large companies. So their sort of strength was actually in project execution, designing, engineering. And solar is, like any machinery, right? Like good and bad can have a lot of difference, right? Or any like infrastructure project, right? Well executed and bad executed, we know how much of a difference can there be on quality, on how much repair expenses you have, on the performance of rooftop solar. Because rooftop solar, once you install, let's say I'm a Johnson and Johnson, and I'm installing this large solar power plant on my factory. The performance of that power plant really matters because I only save money when it produces power. So having good design, engineering, and project execution expertise is what SolarSquare stood for. So they didn't have capital, they didn't have a lot of experience, they were bootstrapped. So they said, we'll do the hard grind of being very good executors, right? There was no sales guy in SolarSquare up until 2019. So I think the first 200 odd crores worth of solar were sold alone by Neeraj, right? So he would go and, sell to like
Wow.
large, promoters and corporate houses, and decision makers there. And the word of mouth started to spread for SolarSquare because, somebody who runs a food business in Gujarat would say, okay, this project was executed so well, then he will recommend SolarSquare to another food business in Gujarat, right? And Neeraj's co-founder is Nikhil. I mean, Neeraj and Nikhil started the business. Nikhil was the engineering backbone of the business. So he is a Pune University grad. He's a ex R&D from Panasonic. He's the guy in the details. So he would be the guy who would really ensure safety, quality control, execution control, etc. And Neeraj would be the one who would bring the business, right? So the two of them tagged. It was a 30-member team. There were, some 3, 4 like senior people, they hired on engineering front and projects front. So they got to be known in the industry for very high quality solar execution. And I think integrity was another thing. They, the way they ran the business, consumers, they never missold or cheated. Their vendors were all very happy with them. So the brand reputation of SolarSquare kept getting built. And everybody would say, who are these 26-year-olds who are suddenly come into this industry? And SolarSquare used to rank ahead of many large solar companies. So by 2019-20, we were ranking as the top 5 EPCs in India. And everybody would say, like
Yeah,
these
what is
days,
the EPC?
engineering procurement construction company. So solar EPCs is what they would be called. All the solar companies which do
Okay.
solar execution. So there are industry rankings for solar EPCs, and they would, rank as the top 5, top 10, I think 3, 4 years in a row. So that
So,
was
an EPC is selling like an upfront payment service, right? Like
right.
they don't sell, for example, a per unit, because you could sell solar by charging for the power. Like you pay me
Yes,
per unit of power instead of paying me for the cost of asset.
correct.
Uh, they don't do that. Okay.
Correct. So there are two models in solar, right? Either you buy the whole power plant, then it's just the consumers has bought the plant and every unit is free for him, right? So he gets free electricity for 25 years. The other model is that you sign like a 15-year, 20-year power purchase agreement where the solar installer invests in the solar asset. So I will put the investment and I will charge you for the power produced. And let's say you're buying electricity at 9 rupees from the grid, from rooftop solar, I'll sell it to you at 6 rupees. So the consumer saves, I make money. And so that is the other model. 90% of SolarSquare's business was capex, where he would just sell. But 10% they did do, they did experiment with this power purchase model as well. But of course, there you had to raise a lot of capital and they were young and, they hadn't raised any capital, by 2020.
Yeah, right. I guess Amplus Solar would have been more in the power purchase. Amplus had raised tons of capital, and
Correct. So fourth partner,
because
Amplus
there you
came
need
up.
to put the
Yeah. So those were the seasoned
okay,
entrepreneurs, like very senior entrepreneurs, and they had raised all the private equity capital. So, at first the question that Neeraj and Nikhil would get, कि यार तुम्हारी उम्र तो 26 साल है. You are coming and selling me a 25-year asset, right? Like, how do I trust you'll remain in business for the next 10 years also, to give us service? So it was difficult, it was difficult to win that consumer trust, to get your first few consumers. But I think after the first few came, the word of mouth, really took them ahead.
What was the percentage of revenue from maintenance? Typically, like, companies which sell these kind of industrial machinery have anywhere from 20 to 40% of their revenue
Right.
coming from after sales service or parts.
Right.
What was it for
Right.
SolarSquare?
So I think for these guys, it wasn't that much. I think for these guys, it would have been barely like 5% or so, not 4-5%, not more. So solar maintenance, is not because at least for 5 years, in these large industrial power plants, for 5 years, we would sell the maintenance package upfront to the consumer. So we'll charge upfront for the maintenance for the next 5 years. And any sort of, spares, repairs, etc., would be covered by SolarSquare. So, maintenance is not, that big a revenue contributor for the solar company. Interestingly, it makes a lot of difference to the consumer, however, because without maintenance, the power production can go down drastically. So good maintenance is actually valued a lot by consumers. But, it's just the nature of the industry that, it's not that high in terms of revenue per se.
Okay. So now, when your stories intersect, 2019, talk about that. Like, what did you see as your role in this?
Right. So, in 2019, basically, when I became available and I had sold Flyrobe, I was figuring out what to do next. And I wanted to do something entrepreneurial again. It was very tough for me to go back into a job and, like do something, something else. So Neeraj basically said that, why don't you join us? And we are looking to start retail solar, like most small. So earlier they would do like large corporate solutions. So it would be $500,000 ticket size, one project, right? And he said, hey, I see this huge demand coming up in SMEs want to go solar, housing societies want to go solar, homes want to go solar. This is going to be a more retail-like business where you won't do it like like an EPC company. You'll actually have to execute it like a consumer durable or a consumer business, right? So it has to be standardized, high-speed customer acquisition, high-speed operations. And, it will be a very different beast than what, we've been doing. So that's when I came on board and, I said, let me try and see if I can build that consumer side, the demand side, of this business. So that's when I joined in. And I joined in 2020. And of course, COVID hit. I joined, I think, in January and COVID hit in March. So, it was a tricky, 2020 was a tricky year. We were still bootstrapped and we were experimenting in a new business vertical, right? As a bootstrapped business with no plans to even fundraise. So in 2020, we started our operations into residential solar. And interestingly, like another backstory is that in 2020, Neeraj and I were also expecting our first child. And we went to Bhopal, which is my hometown, on I think 17th of March. And on 21st March, Modi ji on national TV says all shut, can't go anywhere. So we were locked down. By the time the lockdown opened, I was in my third trimester. I couldn't travel again. So we were locked down in Bhopal. So a lot of serendipity happened. Me joining SolarSquare, us getting locked down in Bhopal, and then us deciding to start residential solar experiment from Bhopal. So we said, a lot of homes here, it's a tier two city. Everybody lives in independent homes. Everybody's at home. And there were some subsidies at that time. So it seemed like the right time and right market to start the experiment. So we took an office right across my home in Bhopal. So literally across the road, and there's like our SolarSquare office in Bhopal. It's still there. That's where we run our operations from. And so, we started experimenting. We built a team bit by bit. First 10 people joined us in the residential business, and we started, our operations in Bhopal. And yeah, that, from there, what started out as an experiment into residential solar, very quickly we realized that this is a much larger opportunity than even commercial solar. And it was fairly underpenetrated at that time. Opportunity was not very obvious because commercial solar was this large, like $1 billion industry, and residential was very small. So people were like, "Yaar, ye to koi industry, to, it doesn't seem very big. Our homes even going solar. Do you see a lot of potential here?" But we saw a lot of future. We were very clear that, har ghar solar will be a thing, that rooftop solar will be ubiquitous. Just like you have refrigerator and color TV, you'll have solar on every home. So we saw a large opportunity, and we felt the timing is good. Industry has not yet inflected. So we'll get 2-3 years to, learn the chops, build the foundation. And then when the demand is there, it will be a wave that will take us ahead. So that was a big inflection point, 2020. And when we decided to
Um,
pivot.
what what was the what was the data you saw that was telling you that
Yeah.
this is going to be a big opportunity?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of my big learnings, after now being a second time entrepreneur, is that the consumer tells you everything, right? And I think it is the value that the consumer sees in you, how quick he makes his purchase decision with you, whether he tells five of his friends, "Yaar, मैंने इनसे लिया है, आप भी इनसे लो." I think the answer of your, product market fit lies in what the consumer is telling you. So very quickly, what we in 2 or 3 months of running SolarSquare, of the residential solar operations of SolarSquare, we realized that there is this huge latent demand, interestingly, that consumers want to go solar, but because there is no organized professional company, there are only mom and pop shops and unorganized businesses, which don't give you a lot of trust. Now, for a family to switch to solar, like a typical ticket size would be 2 to 3 lakh rupees. So you can imagine it's a very high ticket size category. Now, high ticket sizes require high trust, right? So people were not finding the trust in their service provider to say, "Acha, main 2 lakh rupe deke, now I want to switch to solar and I will make my own electricity," right? So it's a big decision for a family also, right? To say, "Okay, I'm switching to solar. I'm going to make my own electricity now." And especially when the category is still new and consumer awareness and consumer myths were still shaping up, right? Like all of that. So one thing we realized was that there was latent demand. People wanted to go solar. People understood the benefits of solar vaguely, but they didn't find a service provider who they could trust to take the plunge. So one, we realized it is a supply side problem, which is a good problem, right? Demand hai, but supply nahi hai. So we become that supply, number one. I think number two was how quickly we were able to get to 1 to 2 crores of monthly revenue, right? And I think it took us less than 6 months to get there. That too just from Madhya Pradesh, right? We hadn't even opened up our operations pan India. So we were very clear that if a MP-like state, which is the bottom 10 GDP per capita states of India, if you can find this kind of demand here, you can find demand everywhere, number one. Number two, very good thing we realized was that we were selling all of this in COVID, where all consumer demand had dampened. So we also realized this is a very, recession proof and evergreen kind of a consumer demand because it helps you save money, right? So it's, whether the economy is good or bad, saving money is always in fashion, right? So we said ki it is also going to be a very resilient demand. Third, I think, the big thing that we were seeing was that it just made so much sense, right? Like distributed solar is the future of energy everywhere in the world, right? I think it's a trend that is irreversible everywhere in the world. It's most efficient, it's cheaper, it's cleaner. So we said, naturally, this is going to be the way the world will go. And so this is going to be like a 30-40 year old, like big consumer transition, for the next 30-40 years. And so it's a very, very large business can be built here. We also saw internationally a lot of good businesses were created in this category. A lot of, you know, companies with like $1 billion in revenue, forget valuation, were created in residential solar. So we said, if you can become the number one company of India, you should be able to create a very large business as well. Especially given India is a tropical country, तो यहाँ धूप बहुत है, solar से बिजली बहुत अच्छी बनती है. So, it was just a no-brainer कि, this will be a huge consumer trend and you can create a brand in this category.
You're talking of, say, like a solar city, this which Tesla acquired, which was into
Right.
residential
Right,
rooftop.
right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So there is Solar City in US,
Okay.
there is Sunrun in US, there is Enpal in Germany, which is a privately held company but very large. There is Solfacil in Brazil. So I think Europe has like 2, 3 very large companies. US has 5, 6 very large companies. Brazil has 1 or 2 companies. Mexico has 1 or 2 companies. South Africa has 1 or 2 companies. China has. Japan has. So, it was very clear that this is, a consumer trend where brands will get created, right? So we said, there is enough sort of reason to believe that, something big can be, done here.
Okay. But there is a entry barrier, right? 2 lakhs, you're saying, was the ticket
Right.
size. It's a fairly significant entry barrier. And you managed to have like a 1 or 2 CR within 6 months at this kind of a price point.
Yeah, yeah. And that was very interesting, Akshay, because we had not even launched consumer financing solutions at that time. So these were people who were actually paying the entire 2 lakh, 2.5 lakh upfront, right? Because the economics was so good, right? It was like putting money in an investing asset. You put it up in your rooftop solar and you put this 2 lakh rupees and you end up saving some 50,000 rupees every year for the next 25 years. So people were very clear कि 4 साल में पैसा वापस आ जाएगा and then उसके बाद, it is only savings. So people, but the barrier is for people who didn't have the cash to arrange upfront, right? Because I mean, 2, 3 lakh rupees is the price of an entry level car in India, right? So usually for such high ticket size purchases, arranging, even though it's a great investment, I know it'll save me a lot of money. Arranging that capital upfront can have a lot of friction from consumers. So that is where we had not even launched financing, and we always knew that we'll have to enable financing for the consumer because solar as an asset pays back for itself. So why don't I enable him to get like a loan, where through his monthly savings, he simply pays his monthly solar savings, he pays his solar ka EMI. So net solar pays for itself, right? You don't even have to arrange capital to buy solar. But in the first 6 months, we had no financing solution. So we were still convincing financiers कि, देखो यहाँ demand hai, you should start a solar loan product for homeowners. And none of the banks were ready. Even up till the first year, we didn't have a financing solution and we were going and trying to convince so many lenders. Then we convinced one edtech lender. He used to lend for, these Upgrad and Unacademy, these expensive courses. And he was lending again some of that. And we convinced him, the founder there, ki yaar, you start a solar product. And so that is how the first, financing we could unlock for our consumers. Then like 1 or 2 lenders more came by 2022-23. But yeah, first 2 years, it was very difficult to get financing for our consumers.
A lender here, are they doing a full, like a CIBIL score of the borrower and all of that? Or it's an asset-backed loan, so they don't need to do all that underwriting?
Right. No, so correct. So right now they have to do a lot of credit underwriting of the borrower, right? See, because there is no second-hand repo market for solar panels or solar equipment, right?
Okay.
So unlike,
with
other
the bike, you can sell it.
Correct. So asset-backed loans work when you have a repo market, right? So there's no repo market. There's no clear resale value yet. I think it's a science, and these are all ducks that line up as the industry matures, right? When the industry will mature, there will be a repo market. But it's a cold starter problem today. There is not enough consumer demand because there's not financing. Because there is no financing, there's no repo market. And because there is, फाइनेंसिंग नहीं है तो इसलिए कंज्यूमर डिमांड कम है, कंज्यूमर डिमांड नहीं है इसलिए फाइनेंसर्स को मार्केट साइज छोटा लगता है. सो इट वाज अ cyclical sort of a problem. So that's why we said we have to somewhere somebody has to unlock it to to show the real potential of the category, and then slowly more lenders will automatically come in. So I think we were the first company to convince these lenders to come and create a loan product, which in the beginning they did it like a personal loan. So non-asset backed personal loan, where they would do the CIBIL check and income check of the consumer and give him this loan. Our major convincing point for lenders was that boss, this pays back for itself. It's not an expenditure, it's an investment, right? So it is, why would I default on my solar? Let's say, because if, let's say, you take back my solar, if I default on it, I have to go back and pay my grid electricity. So why would anybody default? Because that's more expensive, right? So it's like जब कोई commercial vehicle लेता है, उस पर default बहुत कम होता है, because he earns from his commercial vehicle,
Yes.
right? Where income
Right,
is linked to
right,
it.
right,
Very
right.
similarly, solar gives you an earning, it gives you a saving. So why would you default on something that saves you money? So that was our big, sort of argument. And we convinced lenders and we said, we'll maintain this asset for 5 years. You give them 5-year loan, for nobody will default because of asset performance issues. Because a big fear that lenders had, let's say I'm lending against a bike. Now this bike is made in factory by a reputed brand. It's delivered to the consumer. There's no operational underwriting, right? Nobody can say, "Meri bike chal nahi rahi, main loan nahi, EMI nahi bharunga," right? Because it's a finished,
Right,
it's a
right, right.
finished good. It's a finished good that's just delivered from a showroom to your home. Versus in solar, right? Solar is not. It's a system that's integrated. It's a mini power plant created on your home. So I will buy panels, inverter, 100 components, and I will design a rooftop solar system and install it on your home, and then I will maintain it. So here the operational performance of the asset is unknown, because there is so much that can go wrong, right? आप माल ला रहे हो, आप design कर रहे हो, install कर रहे हो, maintain कर रहे हो. It's not a finished good. I'm creating this power plant on your home. So lenders were worried that if the operational maintenance is not good, or the operations of the solar company is not good, the consumer will default on his loan, saying मेरा बिजली नहीं बन रहा है, या मेरा 30% कम बिजली बन रहा है, मैं नहीं भर रहा अपना EMI. So operational underwriting is where lenders struggle. How can I underwrite what power plant this consumer has bought? What if he bought from a mom and pop shop who has done a shoddy job, who has installed second-hand panels, or who is not maintaining, and power production is not happening? So for a lender, he can underwrite Akshay's CIBIL score and credit worthiness. That's their strength. He can't underwrite the quality of solar the consumer bought. So that's why we went to the lender and we said, I am underwriting the quality. I am maintaining this for 5 years. I am underwriting the quality. You now only underwrite the consumer's credit worthiness. So that's how, by partnering with us, lenders were able to start giving out consumer loans. So even today, like, lenders give
Okay.
out loans via very few solar companies in India. It's not like in open market you can go and get a loan for buying solar, because lenders always want to, be sure of the quality of the solar company.
Okay, okay. Interesting. What is the product that you're selling here? What all goes to the customer's house? Just help me understand what it looks
Right.
like.
Right. So we are sort of a turnkey service provider for this consumer. Now, when a family decides to go solar, like I said, it's a mini power plant on your roof. You install this rooftop solar system. It has 70 plus components, and it produces free electricity for 25 years. So first step is, the design of the solar. Where should it be installed? How should it be installed? Second is we procure all the equipment that goes inside. So there also a lot of quality control, is done by SolarSquare. That, we are procuring everything and checking the quality of the components that go into your solar. Then we do the actual installation at the consumer's home. And we also help him get all his government permits. Now, just like a car needs car permits to put up solar on your home, you need a solar permit. So there is net metering permit and, bunch of other permits that you have to do. So we take care of all of the government permits for the consumer, including ensuring that he gets his subsidy. Government of India gives a subsidy of up to 78,000 rupees for any homeowner who wants to go solar. So all the government permits and subsidy also we take care of. We also help him get financing, easy EMI. So that also we will only do. So our sales guys are called solar consultants. When you meet our solar consultant, when let's say a family is looking to go solar, they'll book a free solar consultation with us. This solar consultant comes to his home, surveys the roof, understands his electricity requirement, recommends the right solar solution for that home, gives them a 3D design, books their order, and on the spot will check the consumer's EMI eligibility. So on the spot, we'll tell the consumer, okay, you can get an EMI. This will, whether you want a 1-year EMI or 3-year EMI or 5-year EMI. We do all of that right at the point of sale. And then a consumer, pays his booking advance and he books with SolarSquare. Then comes, the design, procurement, installation, government permits, everything. Once the solar is installed, for the next 5 years, we give a maintenance also to consumers. Because our promise to consumers is you are not buying solar, rooftop solar. You're buying peace of mind and electricity savings. For electricity savings, of course, installation is, your job is 30% done. 70% of it is now maintaining it for the next many, many years, right? So we say, ki, okay, for 5 years till you break even, I'm going to maintain this rooftop solar for you and ensure you get high performance and high savings. In fact, we've gone one step ahead now, and now we guarantee savings for 5 years for our consumers. So we tell them in 5 साल में आपका इतना बिजली बनेगा, नहीं बना. Let's say I told you will make 5,000 units of electricity in 5 years, but you only made 4,900. SolarSquare pays you back for the other 100 units. So that is also giving a lot of peace of mind to the consumer, because now they're super sure that they're getting a high performing rooftop solar and peace of mind.
Okay, interesting. I want to go a little bit into the nuts and bolts of what you're installing. So what is
Sure.
it? Is it a solar panel with wires which plug
Right,
into
right.
the home meter system, or okay?
Right. So let me go into the
You said
equipment itself.
inverter. What?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go into the equipment itself. So there are four major components of solar. Number one is a panel, which is the heart of the system. धूप से बिजली solar panel बनाता है, these blue black plates that you see on rooftops everywhere. So this converts sunlight into electricity. This has solar cells inside, which are made of silicon. So that is the first component. The power that is made by solar panels is direct current, DC power. School में पढ़ा था अपन ने AC DC power. The electrical appliances and everything in your home runs on alternating current. So solar panel has given you DC power. You have to convert it now into AC power. Once you convert it to AC power, then you can use it to run appliances at home. So the inverter converts the DC power to AC power. So that's the inverter, which is the brain of the system. It's a very, very important component in the system. Once this is converted into DC power, you basically put that power into your meter. जो घर का जो मीटर है उसमें सोलर की पावर आ जाएगी. Once you go solar, your meter is replaced with a net meter, bi-directional meter. जो आपका current regular meters होते हैं, they only run in one direction क्योंकि आप सिर्फ बिजली लेते हो. When you put up a rooftop solar, you are no longer a consumer of electricity, you are a prosumer, which means you produce and consume. So the meter is bi-directional. When you are producing, you can put excess into the grid. At evening after sunset, you can take back from the grid. So this meter goes in both directions, plus minus दोनों चलता है इसमें. So this power is put into your meter at your home. The third major component is India has flat RCC roofs, right? सबके घर में flat roof होती है. Roof is a very social real estate. So 90% consumers don't want to let go of their roof space for rooftop solar. So what we do is we install solar gazebos. So the panels are put on the top, but we put like a big pergola or a gazebo on top of which we put the panels. Now there is the construction of this gazebo as well. So this is called the module mounting structure. So the modules, the solar panels are mounted on top of this. And this is usually 6 to 8 feet in height. So this is where a lot of safety comes into play because of heavy winds. Designing this for wind safety is very, very important. You put up solar on the belief of savings, and Aandhi Tufan mein if that flies off and it falls on your car or it falls on your roof itself, it can cause a lot of damage to property, also to life. So our pergolas are, prefabricated, ready to install. We make them in factories, and they simply get installed on the consumer's roof, and they are cyclone proof. So we have designed them, because 25 साल तक घरों पे लगा है, you have to design it for future climate change also. Unfortunately, India is having a lot of cyclones now. So we have designed it to be cyclone proof, 170, 180 kilometers per hour wind speed tak, nothing happens to your solar. So this is, and we have trademarked it, it's called Wind Pro Mount. So that's the third part, the module mounting structure, right? Which is the backbone or the spinal cord or the backbone of your system. The last is the cables that go in. Now, because solar panels make DC power, there is something called DC cables. Now, the direct current this is a 800 to 1000 volt of direct current here. You can understand how fatal that can be, right? So ensuring that the cabling is proper, that it is done through conduits, it's covered, that external weather condition cables are used, it should not be prone to rodents or corrosion in external environment. You don't want solar लगाया, चूहे ने तार काट लिया और 1000 वोल्ट का करंट आपकी छत पे खुले वायर में डल रहा है, right? So ensuring very good quality cables, very good cable dressing, very good conduiting, that's very important. So these are the 4 components, but there are 70 plus components that go in solar, Akshay. So there are many other things that go, right? Switch gear and nut bolt, this, that, AC cable, etc., etc. So that is that. And yeah, like I said, you replace
Is this IoT?
Yes. So the inverters do have, SIM card or Wi-Fi connection. So with that, we are able to real-time track performance of solar. So we do track real-time performance of solar. Like when we give a 5-year maintenance to consumers, we do monitor the performance of these power plants as well, and ensure, if there is any sort of performance issues or if the internet connection is out, we proactively, will remind the consumer, please connect to the internet, allow us to track your performance. Or if the performance is down, we'll call the consumer saying, "Aapka solar ka performance kam hai, can we come and check it? What seems to be the issue." So yeah, so there is data loggers inside with which you can track real time performance.
Something like, say, cleaning the panel. Is this something which the consumer, you direct him to do, or you send somebody to do that? Like,
Yeah,
because I'm
so
assuming this would be a very regular occurrence, cleaning
absolutely.
the
See,
panel.
India is a very, very dusty country. So soiling loss on solar is a $1 billion problem in India, right? All of our future power is going to come from wind and solar, right? Largely from solar. And solar performance drops down a lot if the panels have dust deposits on it. Naturally, because sunlight can't reach the panels. So regular cleaning is an important part of the 5-year maintenance package that we give our consumers. But not just cleaning, right? Electrical, mechanical checks are also equally important. Now imagine this whole pergola is it's an external weather conditions, right? There is thermal expansion. So you'll have to check the nut bolts regularly because nut bolt delay ho sakte hain. So regularly, like structural integrity check, mechanical check, electrical checks, voltage checks, everything has to be done. So what we give our consumers is a 5-year maintenance package where every month we do a panel deep cleaning. So we ensure that the dust from the panels is removed. Now that's also tricky business because the external dust is very hard dust. Now if you clean it, just like that or throw water, one, it doesn't get clean because it's hard dust. Two, it can cause cracks on your panel if amateurs try to clean your solar panels. So there is a specific brush with which you have to clean the solar panels to remove this hard dust while not impacting the glass on your panels. Because if you scratch the glass, these are micro cracks, you don't see them. If you scratch the glass while cleaning, the warranties go void. ना आपने 3 लाख रुपए की चीज खरीदी है एंड व्हेन यू गो टू क्लेम अ वारंटी दे से भैया आपने तो मेंटेन सही से नहीं किया तो आई एम रिजेक्टिंग योर वारंटी. Unfortunately, a lot of warranties are rejected in residential solar, right? Because either installers don't maintain it or consumers try to clean it and cause cracks on the panels. So the regular professional maintenance is what this is a 1000 volt direct current hai ek to usme, so it's a high voltage thing that you have on your roof. Plus you can sort of damage your own panels by trying to clean it in house. So we recommend to our consumers that don't touch anything in your solar. Every month we will come and do a panel deep cleaning. Every 3 months the technician also does a full system health check. So we call it a full system health check, and every month we send our consumers performance report. कितना बिजली बना, इस महीने कितना बना, अभी तक लाइफ टाइम में कितना बना है, how much have you saved, what is your carbon offset, what is your environmental impact of your solar. So we give them that monthly report after we do the maintenance and system health check.
Okay. What is your bill of material? Because it seems like the service cost would be a lot higher than the bill of material itself,
Right.
because there is so much extensive service that you're providing.
Right. So Akshay, I think that is the real, sort of business model innovation. So at SolarSquare, we have such a high density of consumers in a city that the density of consumers being so high, one AMC, one after sales technician visits 3 to 4 homes in a day. So that density allows us this after sales cost to not become prohibitively high for the end consumer. So we actually have pretty, in a 2.5, 2.6 lakh rupee average order value. The after sales or the AMC package is, I think, about 15,000 rupees or so. So that, the cost of a 5-year after sales only turns out to be like 15,000, 20,000, somewhere in that range. So this we are able to achieve, and this was the big problem, right? Because you want to give AMC for good customer experience. But if you only have like 100 customers in a city, the AMC cost is going to be very high, right? So then, yes, I can, as a consumer, I value after sales. And as a brand, I want to give after sale, but it is prohibitively expensive because the economies of scale don't add up. So that's why we really focused on going deep in a few markets and having a huge density of consumers. That allows us to stock spares locally. That allows us to have after sales engineers in every city who are, addressing any queries from any of our customers. And it allows us to offer this, preventive maintenance package for much cheaper. We typically have like 500 to 1,000 homes in a city. So that just allows us to have a very, big density of consumers. So and that's also becomes a moat ultimately, because you have higher density, so your cost of maintenance is low, services are better, then more customers want to join you, so your service keeps getting even better.
Okay. And how do you acquire customers? What is your go-to-market strategy? How do you ensure that density?
Right. So, our go-to market is very, very simple. We do digital marketing, and that's our go-to market, and referrals is our other go-to market. So 35% of our monthly orders come simply through word of mouth. And I think that is the real,
Wow.
juice in the business, right? For example, and balance we do through performance marketing, where, we do, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, etc. So, for example, in the last, this financial year, we had over 200 crores in sales, and we spent only 1 crore on performance marketing. So, because, the conversions are
Wow.
good, because the word of mouth is high, one of the things we learned very early on, Akshay, is that when you're selling something worth 2.5 lakh rupees, you can't buy your way through growth. You have to really, really earn consumer trust, and you have to be very good in your service. That's the only way consumers will trust you. So we indexed a lot more on operations excellence than on, spending money on marketing. So, really over indexed on, for example, innovating on our product, like the cyclone proof wind pro mounts I was telling just now about, or enabling financing for the consumer, or the 5-year after sales, or the savings guarantee that we give. We are the only company in India to give it. So innovating on product and operations excellence is where we have invested rather than on marketing. So
Interesting. What's an average CAC? Like
yeah,
currently
sure.
cost of acquiring a customer? What is
Right.
that?
So typical cost of acquiring a customer would be somewhere about 15,000-18,000 rupees
Okay.
for a typical
Okay.
consumer, which includes the sales salary and everything. So digital
Right,
marketing
because
is
your
just
consultant has to visit.
yeah, correct. So
Uh,
digital marketing, like
right.
I said, on 200 plus crores, digital marketing was just about 1 crore performance marketing. But then you have the sales
Okay.
salary, and, you have technology that your sales guys are using and all of that. So
Okay. Super interesting. Uh, so, what is your, like you said, you've focused more on product. So, do you manufacture in house? Is it third party manufacturing? How is that done?
right. So panels and inverters, that those are like, we work with reputed brands, but beyond the point, they are the commodities. So what we ensure is very high quality inspection from on the lots that are picked up for SolarSquare customers. So we work with top tier brands, and then we do very high quality, like, quality control on procurement. We do factory inspections. So our, manufacturers allow us to do inline inspection in factory. So any batch that's picked up by SolarSquare is thoroughly quality checked. So that is, on the procurement side. You can think of us more like architects. We will procure different things and ensure quality of material, and then we will install it. So we don't manufacture the panels or anything or inverters. However, the module mounting structure, like I said, Wind Pro mount is our own trademark design. So that we get manufactured through one partner manufacturer of ours. But that is like designed and manufactured specifically for SolarSquare, because otherwise in the whole industry, Akshay, like people would create these solar gazebos on site. तो वो लोहा रॉड लेके आएंगे, उसको कट करेंगे, वेल्ड करेंगे, फिर वो लेबर कुछ कैलकुलेशन करेगी, और आपका फैब्रिकेशन की तरह होता है ना, आपके घर के ऊपर फैब्रिकेशन हो जाएगा. But we believe when you're designing something for 25 years and it's going to have so much weight of the panels, every panel weighs 27 kgs, plus it's on your roof, तो heavy wind speed को बहुत ज़्यादा prone होता है. So that's why we developed our own module mounting structures. These are manufactured through precision manufacturing in factories. So they are simply nut bolted on your side. So every part is cut and manufactured and zinc coated in a factory. And on your home, you are simply nut bolting it together. So that we do for ourselves.
Okay.
Everything else we just procure.
Okay. I guess the true value add you're providing is on the EPC side, the managing the
Correct.
project, the government approvals that are needed, helping secure the subsidy, because these are, these are non-trivial problems by themselves. All of these are hard
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
So
So our
makes sense
real
to
value add
focus
is
more
on
on
the
that.
service. Yeah, it's on the service side of it, right? Like the whole, like I said, I give you an engine and a battery. Can you make a car? You can't, right? Like there is expertise that goes into creating that thing. So while we are procuring everything, I'm creating the power plant, right? So there is a service involved in how I design, what's my workmanship. सोलर लगा तो आपकी छत पे वाटर लीकेज नहीं हुआ, आंधी तूफान में गिरा नहीं, electrical shocks nahi lage, your kids are playing on the roof, you don't want any sort of safety electrical episode. So our job is more on the service side of it to say ki, okay, I'm going to procure, and then you have peace of mind when you buy a solar installation from SolarSquare. So that is how, we see it. And of course, the government permits and getting the consumer financing, easy EMIs, after sales, all of that is anyways there.
How do you scale operational excellence? Because, like, say you started in Bhopal, it would have been possible for you to personally ensure. And then as you grow, as you go pan India, the distance between you and the person who's installing on the roof is getting higher and higher. How do you ensure that that level of quality is maintained, and what's the way to scale up quality?
Correct. So I think that's the real challenge, right? Like if I were to manufacture these power plants in a factory, it's a controlled environment. I can have a shop floor factory line. I can have all the quality checks and controls in place. I have to create these power plants on thousands of homes across 10, 15 cities of India. How do I ensure the same standard of service and quality? So that is the real, process excellence, operations excellence that we are building here. And we are very, very much, we understand that that is the nature of this beast. India's energy transition will require thousands of power plants on thousands of roofs. So the problem is to solve here is, how do you ensure process excellence and operations excellence? We've done a lot of things. Number one is, of course, investing a lot in training, right? Nothing happens, till you have trainings and, right environment for right investment in making sure that, new installation crews on the field, new solar consultants on the field, everybody undergoes a thorough, rigorous training. The second part is, standardizing things. So why did we create WindPro mounts, right? One reason was, of course, we wanted to give cyclone proof and safety to consumers. Second reason was that I could not trust, if there was cutting, welding, civil work and engineering calculations happening on every home by labor or supervisor, right? A lot of respect for their manual work, but I cannot trust the engineering prowess of, a site supervisor or an installer or a mason, so to say. That's why we created prefabricated ready-to-install kits. So our solar gazebos are the biggest mistake that can happen is in the module mounting structure, right? So that's why we have prefabricated ready-to-install, made in factories, delivered to your home, simply nut bolted on your home. They are a little bit like IKEA. One part, only one way to fit one part in another part, right? So you donkey-proof fairly, no mistakes can happen, etc., etc. Even little things, Akshay, like how do you tighten the nut bolt? Nut bolt bhi to loose reh sakta hai. So you don't do it manually. We give our crews power tools. So every installation crew will carry its own kit of power tools. And so we use a machine to even tighten nut bolt so that no manual error happens, right? I think the third part is auditing, right? Now, after all this installation, also something or the other can go wrong. So last year, we acquired a company called PV Diagnostics. PV Diagnostics is, 3 IIT Bombay founders and 1 senior industry veteran. For the last 7 years, they had built a utility scale solar consulting firm on quality and asset performance. So we said, they have the skill set, and their skill set, they've been doing it for utility scale, large solar power plants. But we got the engineering and the muscle in SolarSquare, that team when we acquired, to replicate the same quality standards for residential solar. So now they are the ones who take care of our audits and quality controls and SOPs and training, etc. So we are very serious about quality control and safety standards. So, otherwise, rather than, we don't invest money too much in marketing. We don't invest too much in, branding or other things. But we've invested in these type of things, right? Like in acquiring PV Diagnostics. As a fairly young company, we made our first acquisition. But we just believed, like these founders have that technical know-how that they can help us really, keep quality standards in check and help us innovate on, further, like you said, how do you scale operations excellence? So through tech, through process, through systems, you scale these things. So that is the third part, right? The quality audits, which the PV diagnostics team does for us. Now, of course, now they are SolarSquare.
PV Diagnostics looks at the data from the IoT device or also on site, like
On site,
the nuts and
every
bolts and
yeah.
okay.
So PV Diagnostics has built, so with after this acquisition, we've built a three-pronged quality control. First is the procurement quality control. So we've started doing inline inspection of everything that we procure. So that's the first step of quality control. The second step is on-site audits, right? So we do audits of the sites that we install. 20-30% of the sites are audited. Then, we go back, we give feedback wherever there are, issues, we rectify that on the site. We used to do 100% audits. Now, because we have good quality controls, we have now reduced it to 30%. So that is the second part. The third part is they are helping us build our asset monitoring technology as well. We are building a full tech stack on asset monitoring. So, कहाँ कितना बिजली बन रहा है, where are their performance issues, having our dashboards, having our, alert systems. Because now we are the largest owner of distributed solar assets in India. So we have more than 10,000,
Wow.
homes and housing societies that are powered by SolarSquare. So it's a different beast, right? To run power plant. I mean, I can run one power plant in a big desert of Rajasthan, right? But to run 10,000 power plants across the length and breadth of India, it's a different kind of a beast, right? So a lot of technology and systems we are building to manage that.
Okay. What are your like top cities, like in terms of the revenue or the installation base?
Right. So our, naturally, the big cities. So, for example, Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad. These are, the big metros which are, which are which have like high GDP per capita, high population, etc. But we also have a lot of tier one cities like Lucknow, Bhopal, Indore, smaller cities like that. So even those are big, Nagpur, Nasik, they're all big markets for us. Currently, our operations are in 8 states of India. Across these 8 states, we are servicing about 15, 16 cities, of which like 5, 6 are big and 10 are like tier 1 cities, tier 1, tier 2 cities.
You've not gone to Delhi yet?
We are in Delhi, but Delhi and Bombay, these are two cities, where like in Bombay, most people live in high-rise buildings, right? And in Delhi also, like, a lot of people have multi-story homes, right? Like 2 to 3 floors ka ek ghar hoga. The roof belongs to the top floor owner. Sometimes it's a shared, roof for all the flat owners, right? So Bombay and Delhi, that's why are relatively smaller markets. But like example, Bangalore has a lot of independent homes. Hyderabad has a lot of independent homes. Pune has a lot of independent homes. We have not yet launched into Chennai, so we're not in Tamil Nadu and not in West Bengal. So 2 metros we are yet to reach. Calcutta and Chennai.
Okay. So this is ideally like tier 2 is a much bigger market for this than metros.
Absolutely. So cities with independent homes, that's our main market. And I would say tier 2, tier 3 rural, like everywhere where, where there is a roof, that is a market for us. So I think the top 50 cities will, of course, of India by GDP per capita will be the main markets. But the next 500 cities of India will also be, equally big. So, one of our operational challenges is how do we expand our services to more cities faster? We get a lot of inquiries from many states where we are still not operational. But I think we will, at some point get into a franchisee model for small town India, where we may not be able to, set up. Currently, we're a full stack brand. We do everything ourselves, right? But maybe, to start our services maybe in Indore, we can be full stack. Maybe in a Devas or an Ujjain, which are much smaller towns, we may have to be, like go via franchisees.
Okay. Yeah. I guess right now is the land grab phase of this industry, right? Like, because whoever gets density in an area first will have a very strong moat for that area, for that locality.
Absolutely. Land grab is the right word.
Okay, interesting. So you said 200 crores was last year's sale, the B2C sale. Is the B2B business still there? The legacy business? 200
crores was the total, revenue of the, sales of the business. The B2B business is, our, we do now more what we call small commercial. So while it's commercial, the customer is commercial, it's not a home, but it's still very small in nature. So it could be a clinic, it could be a farmhouse, it could be a hospital, it could be a school, etc. So, they are more smaller in nature. We don't do that $500,000 ticket size type of business. We don't do anymore. So even in the commercial side, it's more small scale commercial. Our main verticals are homes and housing societies. So the high rise apartments of Bombay, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Delhi, uh, Pune, they are also a big part of our customer base, where we do solar for the common area amenities. So the Resident Welfare Association, the RWA, they will do a decision to put up solar on their rooftop, which will power the common area amenities. Because in a housing society, that's how, people go solar. So your lifts, pumps, your gymkhana, if you have in the society, your street lights, all of that is powered through the solar plant.
Okay, okay. What is the market potential for this business? Like, what's your estimation, and like, what will be your top line couple of years down the line? What's the roadmap like?
That's a very tough question. I can tell you the market potential. So under Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Yojana, which is a recent push the Prime Minister has given to residential solar, India has taken out a target of 10 million homes to go solar in the next 3 years. Now, to put it in perspective, 10 million is 1 crore homes. अभी तक इंडिया में 6-7 लाख घरों में सोलर लगा है, right? So we are talking of, I mean, last year alone, I think 1-1.5 लाख घरों में, 1.5 लाख घरों में सोलर लगा होगा 2023 में. So now going from 1.5 lakhs in 2023 to in 24, 25, 26, by FY27, we are saying India will have 1 crore homes go solar. So it's a huge leapfrog, generational sort of a leapfrog tailwind for the industry. So to put it in perspective, 1 crore homes, that itself represents a $25 billion opportunity. So the next, 3 years, में भी नहीं हुआ 1 crore, 4 साल भी लगे, 5 साल भी लगे. It's just a massive opportunity, right? And in India, there are total 26 crore homes with an electricity connection. Out of that, about 7 crore homes can actually put up rooftop solar. They're independent homes, pakka roof hai, they don't have like a thatched roof or anything. They have a pakka roof to put up solar. So 6 to 7 crore homes is the target addressable market, out of which India is targeting 1 crore homes in the next 3 years. I think it's very ambitious. But even if it happens in 4 to 5 years, I think India will be one of the world's fastest growing residential solar market, in this decade. That much I'm very sure of, that, this is going to be the fastest growing residential solar market in the world. And yeah, I think for us, I mean, there are residential solar companies in the world that have $1 billion in revenues. So for us, we always ask ourselves that if you can have that kind of scale, for which I think our ambition is very simple. That in the next like 5 years, can we have 4 to 5 years? Can we power 1 million homes with rooftop solar, right? So that is how we think about it, and we one of the reasons why we have where that golden number comes from is that with that many homes powered, it will help us offset 1% of India's carbon footprint. And we think that's a purpose worthy of chasing. That's a good enough reason to stay awake at night and give all your sweat and heart and blood into building this business. So that's how we think about it. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. What is this scheme doing to encourage adoption of solar?
Right. So PM Surya Ghar, is a sort of new and sort of scheme that Prime Minister Modi launched about 2 months back. It has already turbocharged the industry in a big way. So, the idea is very, very simple, that, for energy security, we need more distributed solar, right? Otherwise, we'll continue to be dependent on imports of coal and this and that. So the reason for government's push is very simple, that like I was saying, this is the future of energy transition, that everybody makes their own power through their own rooftop solar. To enable this to happen, to enable this 1 crore homes to adopt, I think first thing they're doing is they've increased subsidies. So earlier subsidy up like for 3 kilowatt used to be 44,000 rupees. Now it's 78,000 rupees. So one is increasing the subsidy. The second is mass consumer awareness. So you see a lot of television ads these days about solar. You also see a lot of newspaper ads about it. The third part of the scheme is to make it easy to get the solar permits. So subsidy, for example, now comes directly into the consumer's bank account. India launched the National Solar Portal 2 years back. pmsuryaghar.gov.in is the name of the portal. We make all applications for the consumer on this portal. Subsidy goes directly into the consumer's bank account. So a lot of stuff is being streamlined. Some of the government permits are being made deemed approvals. So you don't have to wait for an approval. It's a deemed approval, automatic approval. So some of that is yet to come into effect. But the simplification of permits is a third major thing that they're doing. So, they're sort of really working to making it a reality from all, from all angles. I mean, for 1 crore homes, number one is like even manufacturing capacity has to go up, right? Do we have enough, that many panels manufactured in India to cater to 1 crore homes? Second, companies like SolarSquare and the installation side has to really ramp up, right? I think currently there are, of all the solar companies put together, there isn't enough capacity to do this kind of service, this kind of demand in the next 3 years. So this ecosystem has to really, like, we have to train more installers, we have to train more solar consultants, we have to really expand to more pin codes. So that's the second thing that they've been working on, and they're working with the discoms. I mean, India has 70 plus discoms, so the government permits are taken out from the discoms. So they're working with all the discoms to to really ramp up their capacity to fast track solar permits, to automate things, make it paperless. I think it has been phenomenal for me as an entrepreneur to see how the government machinery is working. I mean, they're working like a private company, like they're solving every problem. They are on top of issues. They are really doing policy changes that affect at the last mile. And I mean, when there is, government will and policy, tailwinds, it's incredible to see, it's incredible to see how we are really accelerating India's energy transition, you know, through this home solar, sort of category.
Do you have direct competitors in India in residential solar market?
Of course, see, there are, Akshay, it's a mom and pop, unorganized industry, right? So we have a lot of unorganized, players. So, and they're mostly city level or regional.
There's no like funded competitor.
No. There is no funded, sort of residential solar competitor per se. There are OEMs like Tata and Vari and Luminous and Exide. There are these large OEMs which are into manufacturing. They'll either manufacture panel or inverter or something in the value chain, and they have their dealer distributor network. So through their dealer distributor network, they also do the last mile servicing, this installation of the power plant, right? Now, for them also, like, because none of them are full stack, when the consumer is buying, whether he's buying from a unorganized player or a dealer distributor or one of these OEMs manufacturers, for the end consumer, he's ultimately buying from a mom and pop shop, right? So I think, as in terms of having a sort of a professional brand, a full stack professional brand on the installation side of things, we don't have. So we have manufacturers who are, of course, large organized players, and then we have mom and pop installers. So on the installation side, that's where we are creating a professional brand.
Okay, amazing. This IoT device on the inverter which gives you data, is that a source of a moat in future? Like, what could be the ways to use that data?
Right. So see, I think right now, that data we have, this IoT comes from the inverter manufacturer itself, the data loggers and all. I think where our moat is in having access to that much or that many homes that are producing power in a city, in a pin code, right? So for us, the moat is going to be on how we build this data layer to give better savings guarantee, to to bundle it with better financing, better insurance product for our consumers, right? So for us, it really increases our ability to, for example, underwrite loans. It increases our ability to give savings guarantee to our consumers and really be on top of, like through data and machine learning. For example, we can know in a pin code, Sharma ji and Mehta ji, why is one solar not performing as well as the other, right? So I have that comparative data because the weather changes within 3 kilometer radius in a city, right? So Sharma ji and Mehta ji are in one pin code, यहाँ बारिश हो रहा है. Khanna ji and Chaudhary ji are in another pin code, वहाँ बारिश नहीं हो रहा है, right? So how do I really use this data to create analytics on site performance? A lot of magic at the back end, which ultimately becomes a consumer mode, because I'm able to, for the consumer, I'm translating it into a savings guarantee promise.
Okay, amazing. Let me end with this question. What's your advice to aspiring founders, and you are a second time founder now. So, your advice will be more seasoned with the experiences that you have gone through. So, I'd love to hear that.
Right. So I think if you are thinking of starting up for that camp, like just do it. It's scary. You will never be 100% sure. But I've seen a lot of people, really try to intellectualize on ideas before actually hitting the ground. The real, test of an idea is when you hit the ground, when you have consumer feedback. So for those who are on the fence, like, startup, there's never been a better time. Even if you fail, like failed entrepreneurs are very well respected, and you wouldn't have to worry about a job or anything. So I think there is no better MBA than being a failed entrepreneur. So please go for it, and have some real learning. So I think that's one. For those who are already starting, I think I'd give that that one advice only, to be brutally honest about your product market fit. I think not sometimes we focus on all the other problems, ki acha mere, how am I acquiring customers, or what is my operations, or what is this, or what is that. Till you have product market fit, absolutely nothing else matters, right? Don't worry about raising funding. Like, to find out PMF, you can even do it bootstrap, right? If you can do it bootstrap, if you need some funding, raise it. But be brutally honest about your product market fit, and like razor focus on it. Nothing else matters till you have product market fit, right? So I think that is the other advice. Yeah.
Have you raised funds for SolarSquare now? What is the fundraise plan here?
Oh, yes, yes. We have raised. We have raised 120 crores in SolarSquare. We raised a 30 crore seed and a 90 crore Series A. We are backed by Elevation Capital and Lower Carbon Capital, which is a climate tech fund. Elevation Capital is a consumer fund, consumer fintech SaaS fund based out of India. And we also have like a whole bunch of angels. So we have Nitin Kamath of Zero Dha, who's an investor. We have Vinit Atre of Misho, Ashish Goyal of Urban Ladder, Go Find founders, and no brokerhood founders, no broker founders. So yeah, a lot of angels also on the cap table. As a second time founder, I knew that the on tough days and in difficult situations, it's the angels whose advice I really sort of rely on.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Shreya. It was a real pleasure.
Great, thanks, Akshay.